This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Body Count, the podcast where we believe history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, and a proud member of the Big Heads Podcast Network. We're here to show you don't hate history, you just hate the way that it was taught to you. One rule when we choose a topic, someone, or as is usually the case, a lot of someone's died. We give you the series of events in a narrative fashion, and by the end, correlate said story with current events. I'm not PBS Ken Burns or Dan Carlin. If you want a Hoover-esque Just the Facts Ma'am history podcast, we are not going to be for you. That is to say, there will be analysis, opinions. This is not a lecture. My opinions are my own. Know that I hold my co-host verbally hostage. That being said, direct your hate at me, folks, where it belongs. It's said, tragedy plus time equals comedy. No, we giggle at some occasionally rough subject matter. We are not actively trying to offend anyone. You've been warned. Now, it's very important that everybody listen to that because based on some reviews and the hate that comes to my email, not everybody listens to that. It's important that you don't skip it for that reason. Now, if you're still here to stay after that warning, I am your host, Jessica Manor, and I am joined today by my co-hostess,
Bethany Skelton. Hello, what's up? Hey. I made my drink too strong. It's always the second one that you get a little too wrong. You know what I mean? Or a little too right, but a little too wrong. You know what I'm saying?
You get ambitious really quickly, and that's kind of how it happens.
Well, because I didn't actually fully finish the drink. Like there was some melted goodness down there. So instead of finishing it, I just added to it like I would if the glass was empty. So I'm definitely, you were reading that intro and I was like sipping on it and I was like, oh my God. The hair of the dog right there.
And that ice is strong. It is strong with that ice. It gives you the piss quivers, right?
Yes.
Really quickly, we got a lot to get to today, guys. First, our housekeeping. We're a part of the Big Heads Network, which is a great collection of podcasts. We're super excited. Please go check them out on social media, everyone at Big Heads Media on Twitter and bigheadsmedia.com. If you love the show, go and give us those 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Say what you want. It's not really about us. It's not to make us feel good, but it definitely helps us out. Well, Bethany's saying it's about her, so let it be about her when you say something hateful.
This podcast is all about me.
When you call me a vaudevillian ass clown, call her that as well. She's asking for it, not me. It really does help us out on the business end, guys. To that note, our Patreon is up and running again. You can catch up on the Peter the Great series. I've got some more to post on that. We have a whole lot of videos that have to go up. Unfortunately, some of them are kind of having to go through editing because we do say some really inappropriate things, and I really like to keep those free. So, if I put them behind the paywall, you get the full Monty, but there are some things that we say that don't need to go to the public, and a couple of them.
Monty, you gotta pay to hear our big stuff.
Get to pay to hear the big stuff, but I like to keep those free. I like to keep Patreon free. We only ask that you give $1. Everybody's got $1, surely, right? I say that, but
I got $1. I got $1. Hey, 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 hey.
But those are all going to be going up. We're going to finish out Peter. We're going to put some other stuff up. So that'll be updated this week. It's basically like watching us.
Yeah, we've been video recording every episode. So once it goes up, if you've caught up, you can always go back and re-listen. But instead of re-listen, you can actually watch us make a fool of ourselves at the same time.
Watch us be idiots. It's like you're in the room drinking and talking about history and screaming at each other with us. It's wonderful. It's so much fun. We will kind of keep you updated via social media as to when that goes up and where that's at. We'll have it on our pages, but we'll also have it on Body Count's page on Twitter, and we will try to start making reminders and posts for Instagram. So be sure to follow us there. Okay. Now, I know last week we had Dr. Mark Vincent on. He will be back with us next week. He's sick. Or we've run him off. I don't know.
Rude.
We'll see next week. Rude. Rude.
We're kidding. Just kidding.
Are we? I like to soundly abuse our guests. I like to soundly abuse our guests when they're not on the show.
How many times have you and I had to strap up our bootstraps and, do the podcast while incredibly sick? So, come on.
Many times.
He's the doctor.
So many times. But the important thing is he'll be back with us next week to go through whatever part of his book that we get through, as long as I don't slow us up by mansplaining what he wrote back to him, which was basically the first episode. And I'm ashamed of myself. Not really. So this week we are going to do, are you ready for it?
We're going to sink it.
We're going to sink it. We're going to sink it. We're going to take to the sea and we're going to sink the Bismarck. Now, I always promise that I'm going to do battles, and I always promise that I will do singular battles, and things. I'm not going to cover World War II as a whole. My God, I did a couple of, Russian. Right? Exactly. Now you're sick. I did a couple of Russian emperors, guys, and it turned into a 15 episode arc. So imagine if I tried to do anything from World War II.
Okay, well, hold on. First of all, most of my historical adulthood, teenage years was centered around the Civil War. So you wouldn't have to explain a whole lot to me on that one. Russian history, however, is a completely different story. So, yes, it turned into 8,025,072 episodes, whatever.
8,025,072 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. That's what it felt like. And here we are going back into Russia. Well, not right now, but wait, is the Bismarck Russian? If you tell me that
Bismarck is not Russian.
Okay.
She is German. But the reason I got into this is the upcoming time travel talks is it's going to be about espionage. And if you guys don't do that with us, it is at Time Travel Talks on Twitter. They are really fun monthly historical chats. But that's the upcoming subject. So I've kind of been doing some deep diving on some different stuff. And I was looking at spy networks into Britain during the Second World War, and I came across the good old Bismarck. So I thought, you know what? Nerd. So I thought, for once, I'm going to do what I promised to always do, and we are going to do a battle, a singular body count of a battle, or a couple of battles, technically. I know. Look at us.
One of these throwing some punches from the sea. Yeah.
Sea punches. We're taking to the sea. We're taking to the sea.
Except for that the Bismarck sounds familiar. So there you go.
Did you ever hear that Johnny Horton song? We got to sink the Bismarck. I don't know. He's an old time country music,
Maybe I have to hear
kind of folk Western singer. I bet if you heard it, you would have heard it at some point on some local radio station from where we live. I'm sure you would have.
What's it called?
I think it's the Bismarck by Johnny Horton. It's an old song though. Johnny Horton's an old kind of country folk music singer.
I could ask Google to play it real quick.
Let's not play it. It's not a particularly great song, but that was just where I was thinking. Or you could be thinking of Otto von Bismarck, the namesake of it.
Yep, that's it. That's where my brain was heading to.
Oh my gosh. You can't see her, listeners, but she's rolling her eyes so hard at me.
Yeah, because that's what I think about Bismarck. Actually, that's what it is. A Bismarck, isn't that the name brand of a vacuum?
I think it's the name brand of, well, yeah, I think it is a vacuum, but I also think it's a number of household items,
Yeah,
as
no,
well
I mean,
as some food goods. Like Bismarck, I think, makes biscuits or a biscuit mix or something like that.
I don't know. I don't know about that one, but I'm pretty sure the Bismarck is like a cleaning, like they can make it's almost like Swiffer wet jet stuff and dust
Well,
it like.
great. That's where you know Bismarck from. Well, this is the furthest thing from a vacuum.
Okay, I figured. We're talking about body count, not body count by a vacuum. So I figured.
Which, there could be one. I don't know. I'm sure it is a thing. If there are body counts for children's toys, I'm sure that vacuums have their own.
Oh, heck yeah.
So, let's get into it. Now, we begin our story on May 24th, 1941, in the North Atlantic. Commander-in-Chief of the British Home Fleet, Admiral John Torvey, is about and aboard the HMS King George V, like sweating bullets, okay? It's serious times. He is on maybe the most critical mission of his career, as it is make or break time in the war, the Second World War, hunting out some Germans. And shit is getting hardcore parkour metal in the North Atlantic right now.
You said 41, right? That's when things are
1941.
That's when things are gearing up with all that hoopla and the Jews and they're awful and let's kill them all kind of thing. I know.
Yeah, shit's getting serious in Germany. Yeah. Let me set the stage.
I only know this because of the OTDs, because I do on this date for our social media, and I've noticed basically ever since the end of May, all June and July, it has been nothing but from about 1941 and 1944, 1945, nothing but bombings or exterminations or roundups or moves, to get rid of the Jews. So this sounds about, I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm following. I know what time frame we are in.
At this time, Britain's standing by herself, alone in all of the Western European theater. Right. She's it. America has not entered the war, nor has Russia yet. Yet.
Wait a long time before we enter. We do, honestly. I was surprised by that. Sorry, I know I'm getting off topic.
Isolationism, that's a whole nother ball of wax. We're going to skip it. We're just going to talk about the Bismarck. So, Turvey is a man on a mission, and that mission to sink the fucking Bismarck, okay? Which has the nerve to threaten the survival of Britain herself. Now, remember, like we said, this is the point in the war that Britain's basically on her own. America does not really have their back yet. Russia's not into the war yet. So outside of America, pretty much.
We'll let you guys duke it out. Just don't involve us, kind of thing. I feel like that's what U.S. and Britain.
It's a whole culture of American isolationism and a whole culture of Soviet isolationism. It's a whole thing. It's 27 podcasts in and of itself. Right. Go see, if you want the gist, though, go see our Pearl Harbor episode. And you'll learn all about it there. Now, about the only thing that America's doing at this time is running merchant goods in and out of Britain. So we're not with her, but we're supplying her with everything she needs to kick some Nazi ass. Right. And the Bismarck, what you have to understand, is one bad bitch of a battleship. She is the flagship of not always, the German Navy wasn't always super kick-ass, but it's getting there. It's really geared up to that. And now they've built the Bismarck, and it is just the queen of the seas. Or we will find out she is, in fact, the queen of the seas. Now, on her maiden voyage, along with the Prince Eugen, they're on their way to wreck some Allied ship, right? Like, they are in the Atlantic to do it to it. shit has gotten real. So that kind of sets the stage for what we're going into. Now, Bismarck and her pals are like dicking around, and Turvey says, yeah, no, Brages, that's not going to happen. So he sends a fleet to cut the Bismarck and her gal pals, like cut them off, right?
Okay.
And leading the charge, none other than the HMS Hood, symbol of Britain's unquestioned ocean supremacy and pride of the Royal Navy, right? Like, this is the ship. If you say ships, this is the ship that everybody's going to talk about.
Okay.
So everybody saw her, and she was like an attention whore and a half because HMS Hood. Look at me. No freaking slouch of a ship, right? Like, everybody's seamen are jacking it to this ship ocean wide.
I almost spit my drink
I know
out.
it was cheap. It was cheap. I was a vaudevillian ass clown. Sorry, it was a cheap laugh.
I mean,
So, it is what it is. Like, it's the ship. And Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland is rocking command of this bad bitch. And Holland has the element of surprise when approaching the Bismarck. Now, everyone's thinking, this is it. What a blow into the Bismarck before she even has a chance to really start rocking and rolling, right?
all right.
So the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen are like crushing 30 kilometers north of the HMS Hood. And on board the Bismarck is the admiral of the German fleet himself, Gunther Lutyens.
Sure. Lutyens.
Lutyens. That's it.
Don't you have it? Don't you
Sorry.
have it? O's?
No, there's no umlaut. I can't make Microsoft put the umlaut on there. So Lutyens, that's it. Lutyens. Cruising around, being a Nazi asshole, basically.
Right.
Just what Nazis do. And again, as Nazis will do, this particular Nazi had the distinction of sinking some 22 British ships just inside 2 months. So It's really gotten real on these convoys going back and forth, and we're going to really get into it later. But I'm going to give us the wrap up and the body count here at first, and then we're going to get into.
So he's in charge of the Bismarck, and the Bismarck has been destroying all these British ships, correct?
He's the admiral of the German Navy. There's actually a captain of the Bismarck. The Bismarck's got her own captain. He's just on the Bismarck for what we're going to get into is a very important operation called Operation Rhine. Sorry, guys. I nerded out there for a minute. I let it come through. We're going to get back to the kick-ass telling of the story. So he's like a real Nazi German bro, right? Goose-stepping ledge up at the bear-off, all right? Like, he's a bro.
Hi, Hitler.
Yeah, he's Highland hard.
He's in the arm right.
He's real into it.
Hard.
He is real into it. Okay.
Oh.
And Spaghetti-O, he sees the Hood closing in at first light that morning. So the Hood wastes no time trying to eliminate the Nazis as well as she should, opening fire like a pro. But unfortunately, the Bismarck is having none of that shit this morning. The Bismarck is here to show she's got the biggest swinging D in all the sea. And it is on like Donkey Kong in the Denmark Strait, guys. Okay? It gets real in a hurry. Right? It does.
It's like Donkey. It's literally like King Kong on top of the Eiffel Tower swatting at all the flies. I mean, airplanes.
If they were rolling out a metaphorical penis and swatting at British ships with it, that is the Bismarck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like it's raining shells, and rather unfortunately, before long, it's also raining men, literally, not figuratively.
Like not the good.
Men's bodies, not the good kind.
Mm.
You know, the dead body. Because one badass salvo from the Bismarck strikes the hood, slices through 6 decks of steel like a knife through butter, and explodes in the HMS Hood's magazine, where it detonates some 300 tons of ammunition.
Oh shit.
Hashtag not good, right?
Oh.
Understatement of the year by both of us. Pretty much. Let me get my award for understatement of the year this year. Not good is right, because the HMS Hood, which is, again, massive AF, by the way, splits clean in two and sinks to the bottom of the ocean in a little over 2 minutes.
Wow.
So that is the Bismarck. That is what we're dealing with.
Like, this is supposed to be like the royal arm, like the royals, like pride and joy, like that's supposed to be their bad bitch, right?
Yeah, this is the pride of the Royal Navy. It's the baddest ship on the seas until the Bismarck rolls up.
And then boom, in literally 2 minutes, it's what? Sink into the deep depths of the sea. Like, it bitch slapped it. That's what it did. It straight up just bitch slapped the hood, and the hood just crumbled down to the ocean.
Yeah. Welcome to the reality that is.
You want to surprise me, bitch?
Welcome to the reality that is the Bismarck. That's the sad thing. The HMS Hood, you know, boom, before you can blink, pride of the Royal Navy, bottom of the ocean, takes 1,400 good men down with her, including the man with the plan, Vice Admiral Holland. So It is not great at all. Not a great start to all of this. And we're going to get into a lot of this stuff later on. But remember, guys, this is just our overview of what we're really going to deep dive here. So, least to say, the Bismarck, in very colloquial terms, done fucked up, though.
Done fucked up, son.
Gonna come to our straits. You're gonna try to sneak past Britain, and then you're gonna sink our favorite ship. I don't think so. No, not having it. But for now, she sails on, untouched, happy as a clam, happy as a Nazi clam. I shouldn't say untouched. There is some damage to the Bismarck, but not enough that it stops her by any way.
Did you just say happy as a Nazi clam?
Happy as a Nazi clam.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's fucking funny.
There's going to be much worse things to laugh at, to be fair, later on.
Okay.
Nazi clam's going to be the least offensive thing I say during this. I just use done fucked up talking about the Bismarck, you know? So, furthermore, it doesn't take long for the news of the Hood's demise, along with the demise of her sailors, it makes it round the world post haste. No one can believe it. The nation of Britain is shocked and like sad AF. Okay, like I said, done fucked up.
Their baby, and it just got bitch slapped.
That was their baby. That was their men. That's their thing. Done fucked up. Now you're in our waters doing that kind of shit. I don't think so. The HMS Hood also was thought generally to be unsinkable, and that no ship could claim her. So short history lesson here. Yeah. Just quick one. Nothing floating on a fucking ocean, guys, is unsinkable. Let's stop saying that.
And nothing that is built with some sort of flammable material inside a building is fireproof.
No.
You cannot claim something is fireproof or unsinkable. That is just literally karma ready to be like, watch me.
because either a hostile nation or Mother Nature is going to come along and prove you very, very wrong. It is a rule. And it's especially, I think, a rule of the sea. As soon as if I built a boat, I would just call it the sinkable as shit. It's going to float forever. It's going to retire. It's going to be living its life like the Queen Mary.
We're talking about 1941, people. The Titanic, the unsinkable ship, happened in 1912. Learn from your mistakes. You cannot call it unsinkable.
They're calling that one an ocean liner, and shit happens, but they're thinking a fortified battleship. Never mind that the Bismarck cut her down like I said, knife through butter. But again,
it's like a kid talking back to a grown-up. What the fuck? Go to your room.
Exactly. But please see every great ship in history. Everything's sinkable. Everything can be destroyed. Get used to the idea, guys. Ships sink. Now, keep that in mind when it comes to the Bismarck later on in this story. That's also going to be an important highlight. Everything can sink. Now, back to the actual sinking of the Hood. It's a matter of national importance at this point, though, that the Bismarck sink to the bottom of the ocean where those Nazi asshats belong. Because right now they're pissed off. And whether they thought, and I don't think they thought that, but whether they thought that was going to be a break in morale in a way like, oh, God, no. It was like, that was our favorite. Was our favorite. It's on.
And we were in this, but they weren't in it at the first. They were just kind of like, oop-de-doo-de-doo-de-doo. And then the moment they decided to cross that line, and it's like killing it's killing the nation's favorite pet. Like, you just don't do that. You just
Pretty
don't.
Much.
And
you just don't do it.
Vengeance. And you don't want vengeance from Britain. Goodness.
I think most all of fairly modern history teaches this, that you don't want them coming there. You don't want them coming and getting on their ships, coming to your shore. Imperialism, fun. So like I said, it's on. Admiral Torvey calls on every ship in the fleet. It's time to get the Bismarck boys. Fuck this noise. Light them up. Exactly. That said, all these brave soldiers are going, well, shit. It's a daunting task, right? The Bismarck is one bad girl, and she's working with some serious equipment that outstrips what the British Navy is generally working with. Like I said, this is the biggest, most advanced, insane battleship to have ever gone out to sea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, the Germans had to put all of their cans and create a big dick and leave everything else kind of hanging loose. So that's just how they find their one niche and they go for it. But if you can get, what is it? The mass outweighs the mini outweighs the few. Isn't that
needs the many. Well, it's a Star Trek thing, but yeah.
Hey, look at me.
Hey, look at you. Look at you. But it doesn't matter what the Bismarcks come to play with. The sinking of the Bismarck is now life or death for the Brits, and we'll get into why that is a little bit here in a minute. But first, let's look at what the Bismarck has come to play with. 88 guns, accurate at over 30 kilometers, a top speed of 30 knots, and rocking armor over 30 centimeters thick. The Bismarck is the lean, mean ocean fighting machine. Okay, it is. Ooh.
That's also from something, and I love it.
It's coming at you, okay? You don't want to fuck with it. So at this point, it is, without doubt, the most terrifying battleship ever to grace the sea. And just also, on top of that, chock full of Nazis. So makes it double shitty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Not only is it a terrifying battleship, it's full of Nazis. And she has one mission, the Bismarck, to starve Britain into submission. Now, how? Bethany, if you're paying attention, how's going to be your follow-up? How? Well, America wasn't in the war at this point, right? But we were allowing Britain to carry all these convoys, these merchant fleets, Navy convoys to Britain to kind of, as fast as we could produce the goods, sending these all over. Now, this is going to be a little bit of everything. We're sending fuel, tanks, planes, food, etc., in a real capitalist fashion. Basically, we're war profiteering shamelessly, but to who we call the good side. But that is neither here nor there. We'll get into that at another point in history. So all that's going over. We're doing the best that we can for them, but they need all of this stuff. We're sending it to Britain by the barrelful.
Yeah, we're keeping them kind of afloat, right?
Yes, because she's cut off from all of Europe at this time. It's all except for us. Everything from the Soviet Union to us is Nazi territory in that span of Europe. Minus, Italy and whatever she got to carve out. So think of it that way. So it's not great at all. It's important that these British convoys of merchant ships can get back and forth across the Atlantic to pick up these goods from the United States. It's crucial. Otherwise, Britain starves to death. They have nothing to fight the war with.
Well, it makes complete sense. Honestly, if I'm thinking of it, okay, Britain is not in this war. We're not in this war, but they need help because everybody else is in the war. Sure, why not? We got an alliance. That makes sense. Or not.
Roosevelt wanted to help as much as he could. Roosevelt wanted to. It's a whole thing. But this is what America is doing at the time.
Besides, honestly, when you scratch a country's back, the main kind of purpose is so that the country can scratch your back when you need it. So, I mean, there's
eventually, hold the Nazis off into Europe. So we isolationist assholes don't have to deal with it.
Eliminate the Nazis.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we're getting into a whole subsection of history. We just want to focus on the Bismarck. So the British don't have to take a guess at what the Bismarck's objective is. Stop these British merchant convoys reaching Britain. So when I say the Bismarck had to be sunk, she must be sunk. And we'll get into why these battleships are strategically important, and particularly this one a little later on. Again, this is just a summary of events, guys. So Britain has no choice. This is literally life and death, legacy tipping point of the war shit right here. So the Bismarck has a bounty on her head. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, back on the Bismarck, they are partying and celebrating at the sinking of the HMS Hood. Everybody,
we're the best. We're number one.
Yeah. And they're having weird Nazi parties, doing weird Nazi stuff. Everybody's getting I don't want to know what that is.
No, you were seriously gonna say they're having weird Nazi orgies, well, wouldn't put it past them at this point.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. They may be drawing circles on the deck and magnetic chalk and, I don't know, calling up the Vril Society or whatever the male version of that was. I don't know what these assholes got up to, okay? I do know that there's there's extra food.
We don't like Nazis.
Sorry, but anybody that advocates for a Nazi, I'm not a fan of either. I'd say that's a great icebreaker. How do you feel about Nazis? If anybody answers in the affirmative, we're done. Done.
Well, there's 3 people on both sides.
Precisely. See, we're done. No, We're done. They're not. That was good. Thank you and good night, Mrs. Maisel. No shit.
Gosh.
So they've got like extra food, cigarettes, which is essentially my kind of party, just FYI. And I hate to say that, food and cigarettes. You throw some booze in there and I'm living my best life.
Yeah.
So the Bismarck heads south into the Atlantic, partying, being weird the whole way. But Turvey is in hot, right, exactly, Highland Hitler, who knows what they do. Turvey is in hot pursuit, however, keeping the Bismarck within radar range. Then, in a colossal fuck up, the Bismarck squeezes through the cordon on May 25th and drops out of sight. So the biggest, baddest bee of the sea is now at large in the Atlantic Ocean.
How the hell do you just lose a big ass ship? What the fuck?
British ships weren't close enough that it was showing up on radar range. They thought they were following close enough. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing we'll get into. But she squeezes through and disappears, which whatever, we're not here to discuss the WTF of all that. But if I was ass grabbing the Bismarck, I'd make damn sure I didn't lose her. Okay? I'm just saying.
Yeah, you want to stay real close on that ass if you want to grab it.
Yeah. You want to stay up on it. Okay? You don't want to let it, out of sight. You want to be just out of sight, out of range of the guns, but you don't want to let her out of your sight. That's just me. Whatever. We'll move on in the story. And then it just starts getting really real at that point because they're throwing up every spotter plane, battleships. They're turning the ocean upside down, looking for the one and only Bismarck. And they find a grand total of nothing, but then the Brits get lucky. Or the Nazis got cocky, any way you want to look at it.
Option number 2. That's
there you go. That's the entire part of the story, and that's usually how it goes in history, though, isn't it? So Lutyens, for whatever reason, decides to break radio silence and sends an update back to German command. I suppose he's feeling pretty good about himself. Those Hugo Boss uniforms really give him the confidence to, strut his Nazi stuff. And the message is intercepted in listening stations across the UK.
Yeah.
So Turvey has Lutyens back on the map, chases on again, and they find that the Bismarck is still heading south toward occupied France. But they still cannot find the Bismarck, so they check some calculations. Turns out another monumental fuck up as they were going in the wrong direction.
It's like asking a man to follow directions. Fuck.
Exactly. So again, I would have double checked, but whatever. I'm not a seaman. And to be fair, thank God for that. To be fair, though, the Atlantic Ocean is quite a big place. Especially so, it is now. So imagine even in 1941, it was especially big. So what now? Well, they turn around naturally and start heading the right direction. But like I said, big place in 41, and they're going to be lucky AF if they are able to find the Bismarck again. Luck is on our side, however. On May 26th, an RAF Catalina plane spots the Bismarck. Turvey has the Bismarck once more on the map, and she is 18 hours from French waters and Luftwaffe support, which means Turvey will never catch her where he's at. But as luck would have it, a fleet of British ships is headed north from the Mediterranean. So if you're looking at that, they're going to come around Iberia there, and boop, there's occupied France. We're going to cut you off. Yeah. So bit of luck there. We've gotten lucky. Now in this group is an aircraft carrier with a squadron of swordfish biplanes. We're going to get into a little bit what that means and what those are exactly. And these planes aren't exactly what you would want to be having a go at the Bismarck. Let me put it that way. They're super lightweight. They're kind of antiquated. There's something from a past time, and this is what is going to come off this aircraft carrier and have to go at the Bismarck. We're going to kind of break down why that's actually a good thing later on. Nonetheless, these super lightweight planes take off like a bunch of badasses into what can be categorized as some very stormy weather. Now, conditions are awful. These pilots can't see one another, and they're relying on the lead plane's radar to even guide them on the hour's flight to what they think is the Bismarck. So basically, we're really feeling the underdog story currents, if you will, at this point in time.
Talk about the meaning of flying blind. I mean,
this is it.
Brings a whole nother meaning to it.
Yeah, and the Swordfish doesn't even have a cockpit. They're those open, like early. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they're from a previous war type plane. So these planes see a ship ahead. There's a big problem, as the ship they see is the HMS Sheffield, which means she's a British ship. You just gave me a look like, what does that matter? Okay, again,
cool.
Remember, these poor pilots have very limited visibility. Completely unaware of the mistake, the pilots close in on their own ship. Torpedoes hit the water, but lucky for the Sheffield, the torpedoes that do hit the ship have faulty warheads and do not explode.
Oh my God!
I know. So
you
while all of this,
I
wasn't. This is a story. Okay, this is a story. Now, while all of this is going down, the Bismarck has edged 4 hours closer to safety in friendly waters. So Turvey, God, this guy is having a bad few days, right? He's got the wrong direction. His own battleship's just been hit. He lost the ship in the first place. Bad few days for him. Learns, bad day. He learns of the botched mission and the attack on his own cruiser. Meanwhile, the weather's getting worse, making flying almost impossible. But what the F is he supposed to do? This is the last chance.
Balls to the motherfucking wall.
Balls to the wall. The Bismarck. Exactly. Bismarck must be sunk. And so Turvey orders another attack. The weather is wild. People are struggling on board this aircraft just to arm and refuel the Swordfish biplanes on deck. Nothing is looking particularly good in this situation. The wind is blowing 70 kilometers per hour, and the ship is just bobbing around, wet and wild in the water. But it doesn't matter because 15 planes managed to still take it off in this whopper of a freaking storm brewing in the Atlantic, right?
Wow.
Can I just say, is there a better ambiance for this story, though, than the badass business that we know is about to go down? Like, just God almighty.
Honestly, I feel like you described a movie trailer that I know I've seen. Like, I feel like the way you just described everything, I've seen the movie trailer for this. I know it's out there.
I'm Admiral. The time was May 1941. Britain stood alone. Convoy sinkings were increasing when Bismarck, the most powerful battleship in the world, broke out into the Atlantic and sank the Hood. Bismarck had to be sunk if Britain was to survive. Winston Churchill gave the order.
I don't care how you do it. You must sink the Bismarck.
This is how it was done.
We gotta sink the Bismarck to the bottom of the sea. They find a German battleship that's making such a fuss.
The Bismarck is now just 10 hours from air support, and Turvey has he's just got to wait to see what happens with this last chance here. So yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to stop you. But you said 10 hours from air support, but didn't you say he was only 4 hours from friendly water? So that's not the same thing, right?
No, he was 18 hours from friendly water.
Oh,
Then we've got those folk coming up from the Mediterranean. They take the hour to fly to bomb their own ship. The hour back, they have to load all those ships up again. So 8 hours have passed. And now the Bismarck is, or more than 8 hours, 8 hours. So now the Bismarck's only 10 hours from occupied France, or at least to where the Luftwaffe can get out and support her. Does that make sense? Like cover her ass.
I was trying to get I get the time difference and everything. I think I got it mixed up at where the Bismarck was, the time frame of the missed bombing. Oh, typical. And then obviously it's gonna still keep trucking along. Like, haha, you fucked up.
Right, it's still going. They've got to fly back to their carrier. They've got to refuel. They got to reload torpedoes. All that, and then it's a horrible storm.
On top of that, besides, it's like basically putting paper airplanes at your battleship game, like flying them out into the fury of the Atlantic. It's like, here, I'm going to set up my plastic battleship. I'm going to aim tiny airplanes at it and see if I can knock it down. Pew! Pew, pew. That's what
pretty much. That's exactly. But we'll get to why that ended up being a really good idea in the end. So Turvey's just got to wait to kind of hear what the deal is with his last chance to catch the Bismarck before she gets in friendly occupied waters and the Luftwaffe can save her ass. Now, it's 2 hours before the lead plane the second time even picks up the Bismarck. And it is the Bismarck this time. We've got the right ship, finally.
Okay.
So after they leave the carrier, it's a further 2 hours before this squadron can even catch up to her. But they do find her. Now, aboard the Bismarck, they hear the swordfish approaching. And, of course, the Germans are like, oh, yeah, okay. When they see, they are inside the Bismarck.
Everybody start breathing hard. We can blow it away.
Exactly. They're inside. Come on. Let's just fan it away.
Make some wind.
Exactly. Because they're in the queen of the sea. A tip of the hat to German engineering there. And what do they see? A bunch of ancient, outdated planes being tossed around by the wind. Yeah, heading basically Tonka toys, just like my kids throwing it across the sea at the wall, being tossed around by the wind, headed down to attack the baddest bee of the sea. And it does seem laughable. We're laughing. It does seem laughable.
It really is like a David and Goliath moment. Like,
oh yes.
It's very much of, look at that tiny David human being. Look at me, I'm Goliath. I'm the Bismarck. I'm the baddest bitch around. It does feel very biblical.
Like I said, it does feel biblical. This is a real underdog story here. And it was laughable, but still, the pilots form up and they dive down to about 90 feet to attack the Bismarck in a hard wind. Now, they let loose the torpedoes, and only one manages to hit exactly right. Now, they take some hits, but they're maneuvering, and they're avoiding these, but it only takes one.
Being pregnant, it only takes the one time.
It only takes the one swimmer to sink the Death Star, okay? Like,
people, one. It only needs one to break down.
It only needs that one. And that's exactly, this is very much like Luke Skywalker is about to shoot the little lasers down the pew pew tiny hole and destroy the Death Star, folks.
I was thinking Spaceballs, like, why would they have a button right here in the center. Nobody probably has our followers.
Same different.
know what Spaceballs.
No, I promise all of our followers know exactly what Spaceballs is. Trust me, they're Mel Brooks fans. Like,
why is there a button? Like,
as many times as I say it's good to be the king on this show, like I would hope they're Mel Brooks fans at this point.
Yeah.
So they let loose the torpedoes. One manages to score the hit of hits because, spaghetti-o, turns out the one was all it took, like we said. Now, these antiquated planes that were the subject of scorn by those aboard the Bismarck weren't so funny anymore, for that single torpedo had completely disabled the ship's steering mechanism. So now the Bismarck,
it's just
terror of the sea, is dead in the water doing circles.
Oh,
they
shit.
Take out one, it can't go anywhere.
Oh, I was just thinking like you can't like turn it at all. Like it's just boom, like you're just going like this. You're talking about everything. Like it's
essentially
not
it damages the port side. It damages the port side steering, and so it's literally going in a circle, like a big lazy circle, just waiting to die.
That's actually what reminds me is the very first time I ever rode a jet ski on the lake. The person specifically told me, make sure you're attached, like you're supposed to have this Velcro
tether. Yeah,
you're supposed to have it, because if you get thrown off, it automatically
it'll keep going,
and it just starts turning in a circle so that you can actually get back to it. Oh my God! Well, good. Yes.
So imagine seeing that jet ski.
Yeah.
Like how it does that. Only do it on a massive battleship scale, and she's just doing that in the Atlantic. That's all that it can do.
And then you add in the enemies are coming for you. So you are actually.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you're like a shark that's circling prey without knowing. Well, at this point, they actually do know that their other prey is coming for them. So it's
exactly
pretty intense. That is an amazing picture.
Like an amazing mental image, right? Like this terror of all of the sea, one torpedo, and now she's effectively dead in the water. So it's on in earnest now, like on for real, because the Bismarck is still some hours from safety and air support, sailing in this lazy circle, essentially unable to move. Now, Lutyens and...
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
When you say it's really not moving, the sea moves in itself. So is it actually, it might be doing circles, but it's got to be drifting, right? It's got to be.
Right, but you've got to understand the British Navy is full steam ahead, coming for them.
Take long, especially if they're going to be that far out from...
They can't move. They can't go anywhere. Yeah, from France.
Okay.
From occupied France.
Okay. All right.
They can't get away. They can't go anywhere. They just got to sit and wait for the British to come kill them.
Like those stenographs, is that what they're called? Where you're just moving and trying. Yeah,
it's just listing and lazy circles.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
The definition.
So, yeah, the very definition, actually. Lutyens and the crew can't simply outrun the Brits now. So no more food and cigarette parties, I can tell you that, because they realize, oh, shit, we are effed in the A. Like, it becomes real apparent really, really quickly.
That's what. Let's
sober up. Sober up. The British are coming. The British are coming. Like,
oh no, the British are coming.
Exactly. Exactly. It just got real. So after just a few days of shoveling the proverbial shit, Turby finally has a win and can attack the Bismarck whenever he chooses.
Yeah.
So to avoid the problem of friendly fire, because he's had quite enough of that after his own cruiser's been attacked by his, own squadron of flyers, he's had enough of that. Turvey just waits until morning. Boy, is that not even rougher? Now they're getting punished. You know what? You sit there, you wait there to die. You wait until I feel like it. Keep on.
Circles till you're dead.
Till you're dead. Which now he's having the opposite of the last few days he's having. He's having a great day.
Now he's got the cigarettes, the booze.
Yeah. Now it's the other way around. Exactly. So.
And not only that, but they're having the party. They're like, hey, we can see you. Can you see us?
Exactly. Can you see us? This is what surrounding you looks like. 8:47 a.m. of May 27th, the British open fire. And what a good feeling that must have been after losing the Bismarck, going the wrong way. They opened fire at extreme range. Their own ship. It's been a rough few days for the good old Royal Navy. Let's just say that. So, I know, exactly.
This is what we call a redemption.
Yeah, this is a real underdog redemption story, if you will, folks. So they opened fire on the Bismarck at extreme range, something like 16 miles, which is banana bonkers. But it's not long before it's seen that they are bombarding the shit out of the Bismarck. So within minutes, a hit destroys the command bridge, and with it, Admiral Lutjens. Yeah, right off the bat, Admiral of the German fleet's gonna die. And we don't have to feel bad about it at all because he's a Nazi.
Sorry.
He's a Nazi. That's the one fun thing about Nazis, though. It's the Indiana Jones rule. It's the Indiana Jones principle. You can be happy when they look directly at the Ark of the Covenant. You can smile when a Nazi's face melts off because it's a Nazi.
Bye.
No one cares. Bye.
You Nazi piece of shit.
Right? Exactly. Have fun in hell, sir. Goodbye. But even crippled. Do not wish you well. Never want to see you again. But even crippled, the Bismarck is still scary AF because she's returning fire the entire time. Remember, those 88 guns are nothing to scoff at.
I really didn't figure that she would go down without a fight. We're talking, even if she is circling her death, she's like, oh yeah? I'm going to come around circles with my gun, bitch.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Like, she's going to go down. She's a fucking Bismarck. I did not expect it, so.
No. But Turvey is rocking and rolling, firing like a mother, and closing range from 16 miles to something like 2,000 feet in a little over an hour. So they are moving. This is seriously a man, like I said, who's had a bad few days, is exhausted, and he is not here to play. Nonetheless, 90 minutes into some really intense bombardment, the Bismarck still will not lay down and die.
How frustrating. Like that, it's... Sorry, I was going to make a really dirty, inappropriate joke.
Because let's save it. Let's save it for not having to edit.
Yeah, only because of how frustrating. You just have literally had the shit end of the deal. You're finally there. You're hitting it with everything you got, but yet it still isn't.
And the bitch won't go down. Exactly. Exactly. Won't die. And let me tell you, still not sinking despite the hammering she's taking, won't go down. So Turvey, this is how intensely they've bombed the Bismarck. Turvey only has one ship left with torpedoes. But this, only one. But you only need one. You're exactly right.
Learned that one.
But this is a man, again, Who didn't come to lose today?
He already lost
Not
everything
today.
else.
He's already lost. He's had enough. He's up to here, had enough.
He's at that moment where he's like, look, either I'm going to kill him or I'm going to die trying. Like, I will take them fuckers with me. And that's my kind of man. I'm sorry, but when you're in war, especially with Nazis, like, you literally have to make that decision. Either A, I'm going to freaking kill them, or I'm going to take them with me as I go.
Right?
Take
Exactly.
as many as I can.
He's
So-
already gone George S. Patton before he was even on the ground. He's already inhabited that spirit. Like, this is a man who's had enough. Exactly.
I had shit up my ass, left and right, the wrong kind of shit. Okay? Not the fun shit.
And I've had enough.
Damn. If I've got one or half, even if he had a raft, I really, really, truly believe, even if the ship had sank and he had several people on board with some kind of firearm on a
Throwing
survival-
grenades.
He would just get as close as he can at the night, throw shit, say fuck it.
Exactly. That
I'm okay with it. You're gonna
that's
die
where he's
trying.
at. So that's where he's at. He's having no more of it. Now, so, well, like we said, he's only got the one ship left that still has torpedoes. So he calls up the Dorsetshire and says, basically, don't fuck this up. So they fire one very well placed torpedo. And so they're kind of locking and loading to start firing a second, but they don't need it because finally the Bismarck has the decency to start turning over. At 9:39 a.m., the Bismarck lifts hard to port and capsizes. The stern dips into the water and down goes the Bismarck, sunk on her maiden voyage. It's the first time it's ever been out.
If you want to get a ship down, all you need is the actual sea. Just enough water in the right spot, it'll take you down. It'll take all of them down.
It'll take all of it. So here's an idea of how serious Turvey was. Of the crew of 2,221, only 115 survive. The Bismarck got it hard and heavy.
Yeah, they did.
Real bad.
God.
So inside of 4 days, two of the world's largest ships, the HMS Hood and the Bismarck, have sunk, and 3,500 men have died. So how's that for a body count to start us off, right?
In one fell swoop. That's the thing about sea. That honestly, and that there is what that right there is why I do have. I have been on a cruise ship, and I'm not going to say that I don't like them because I was a kid, so obviously I liked it. But knowing what I know now as an adult, that literally all it takes is just one thing, and that will completely capsize this ginormous, unsinkable ship that's been just blowing up things and tearing through things left and right. It takes one thing. And
Exactly.
that's scary as shit. I'm sorry, but it is.
No, it really very much is. You don't screw with the sea. I agree. So
You should be happy there's 115 people that did survive. And honestly, they probably have PTSD for the rest of their gosh darn lives, and I would too.
But we don't really have to feel bad about it because they were on the Nazi side. So this was an easy opportunity for the Third Reich to essentially win the war in Western Europe outright in 1941. Easy as pie, starve Britain out. It was a great plan.
Yeah.
So how did it end up with the Bismarck at the bottom of the ocean? Now, don't worry, Bethany. There are plenty of naval historians who can tell us just what the F, leads up to this thankfully botched attempt at bringing Britain to her knees and an early end to the Second World War.
I mean, don't fuck with Britain. Just don't.
Not
just
on the
Britain,
sea.
but the royal pride and joy of the sea. Don't fuck with it. Like,
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You know what? Again, everybody knows I'm not the historian here. And I didn't just learn this because of the podcast. I have known for a while that there's something up between us and Britain that you just don't, just don't, just leave it where it is. Don't fuck with it. Don't fuck it up. Don't do anything. Just, if anything, you say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, or yes. There you go.
You go. So basically, we're looking at a whole bunch of miscalculations on the part of Germany, which, again, not necessarily a shoulder shrug situation if we are not, in fact, talking about Nazis, but we are, so we don't have to feel that bad. In which case, it's a little bit funny, in fact. So March 1941, Germany knows it has to defeat Britain for total domination of the European theater. They're the last holdout, right? They knew that. Britain knew that. We know that. Germany also knew that Britain's survival was dependent on those supplies crossing the Atlantic. Now, Germany says...
I'm sorry. Is this still during the time around the time with Edward VIII? What is Edward VIII doing around this time? Has he been pushed aside and leaking secrets yet?
He should be in the Bahamas. He's in the Bahamas by now.
He's hiding out. Okay.
No, he's already been sent there by Churchill. If he abdicates in 36, we're talking about... Yeah, this is after the Ardennes and all of that stuff.
Okay.
Germany's already occupied all of Western Europe. Britain's the last holdout in 41. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
So, okay.
All right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, we know that everything, their survival, dependent on the supplies crossing the Atlantic. Germany says, hey, if we just stop all these things they need to keep fighting from coming across, we win sooner or later. Sort of a theater-wide siege plan, if you will, which is not at all a bad plan.
Right. Yeah. It's a chokehold. That's
pretty much. Pretty much.
The playful things, the things that they probably don't need, but it's way too enjoyable.
No, it's all things they need. This is everything from food to fuel, planes. Like, exactly. You're exactly right. So sever the lifeline, you get Britain. And the Germans come up with a pretty clever plan. So they send out a bunch of U-boats or German subs, right? To force the British into using the convoy system to transport these goods to begin with. You know, the safety in numbers, travel in packs. But then all these boats are huddled together, right?
Yeah, your buddy boat system. There you go.
Yeah, but they're in these big convoy huddles. So a battleship would then descend and sink them all on the spot.
Yeah, because if you just hit, again, it only takes one, and if you're able to hit one in a huddled group of boats, then you're going to take them. It's like putting a bullseye on yourself. Actually, if you think about it, the shape that you're presenting, it's like, hey, come right down in the middle of all of our centers, and you'll get us all. It's like
essentially. And that's what's great about it. Really not great about it, obviously. It's not the Allies. But it really was a very clever plan. You have all your subs in a sort of unrestricted sub-warfare situation, forcing these convoys to form because the only way to get goods across is these convoys. But then you're having random battleships attacking the convoys. It's a pretty smart plan because Britain...
You hate it.
But it's well done, well thought out. The British can't stop convoying because they don't stand a chance of getting goods from A to B otherwise with the submarines.
Yes.
And then they would lose the war then and there if they stopped the convoys.
Yeah. Right, exactly. If they don't have anything to help keep it breathing, then how are they going to survive? How are they going to survive and fight it off? They're not.
Exactly.
So That's cool. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
not cool. Sorry.
Not cool, but clever.
Right.
Very clever.
That's what I meant. Like it's you
I knew
can't
what you
hate
meant.
it. Yeah.
You
Okay.
can't hate it.
You
So
really can't.
Germany puts the plan into excellent practice from the start of the war on. In something like 20 months, they successfully sink 6 million tons of shipping,
Oh.
which is nuts to even think about.
Okay, wait.
But that's
So
kind of where we are at this point in the war.
you said 6 million tons of shipping, so not 6 million ships. I wonder what they're estimating to, but that would be a lot of ships. It would be a lot of ships.
They'd put down 22 inside of 2 months. So try to imagine what they put down overall. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly.
That is crazy to even think about. But
It's tough to even think about. So by 41, the Bismarck is locked, loaded, and ready to wreak havoc, Reich style, in the Atlantic. She's done. She's finished. She's ready to grace the seas.
Right.
Now, this is a secondary part of this general operation. The mission is called Operation Rhine, or I guess Exercise Rhine, I guess, technically. And it is like the OG plan to get all German heavy surface ships out on the water. That's the original plan.
Like,
it's not just going to be the Bismarck. It's going to be half a dozen huge ass warships, right? And they're just hitting these convoys left and right. But before Operation Rhine kicks off, the Germans have a really big streak of bad luck. Yay! Oh, how sad. Yay! So most German battleships have been incapacitated. Now, they limped in from some previous convoy attacks in the Atlantic, licking their wounds, and they've had the shit shelled out of them. So most of the heavy surface ships are not operational at this time. So instead of, like I said, 6 bad bitches sailing the seas, Germany, because it's Nazi Germany and no one knows what the hell anyone was thinking there in that period of time, sends out just 2 battleships for this operation. Now, there's going to be F up number 1, as this was supposed to be this huge operation, and they no doubt would have done better to wait for the other ships to be operational. But that's just me.
I mean, it's the drugs, but I get it. Sure.
It's, everybody's having a great time in Nazi Germany, apparently, being awful human beings. Yes. So, again, not really sad about it, not crying any tears for Nazi Germany. So they're all goose-stepping around in their Hugo Boss, feeling confident, looking sharp, and they say, fuck it, throw caution to the winds. We're the Third Reich. We can't possibly lose. And to be fair,
from everything.
Exactly. To be fair, though, they've done really well thus far. 22 Allied ships inside, so many months. So,
but here's the thing. I hate to interrupt you, but here's the thing that I've noticed when it comes to history. Just because you are winning some doesn't mean you're winning all and that you will be the winner. So there's a huge difference, especially in during the whole war. So I notice, when I'm doing all the, obviously you've turned me into a history clone of, I don't know, it's weird, but I've learned very quickly, like you just can't keep doing and thinking that you are unpenetrable or, oh, look at how many battles I've won. Well, guess what? It just is the one. I feel like this is what the episode should be called, the one. It only takes one.
It only takes one.
I'm sorry to have interrupted, but it just was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, to where every time in history, the big man, the Roman Empire, the Tsar, everybody, the one that gets the big head, or nobody can get me because I'm so-and-so. Well, no. Actually, if anything, you'll be shot down sooner than everybody else because of the fact that you think and you act and do everything that you do and portray is, I'm better than you. Well, you will learn very quickly, if you haven't already, which clearly you haven't from history, it does not work out for people like you.
That is not the case. Exactly. So, of course, they get impatient and they think total victory is at hand really, really quickly. So the plan also entails the Bismarck and the Prince Eugen navigating undetected around Britain. Still feeling real cocky about it, too. After all, the Germans at this point had sent half a dozen missions into the Atlantic since 1939, and not one had been intercepted. So again, feeling uber confident, and Germany is thinking, there is no way our luck runs out now. Wrong.
Wrong. It's like the man that's like, I've had unprotected sex. I'm not making babies.
Exactly. You are this time. So miscalculation, as the British are suffering from, the earlier fuck ups and the disruption of the convoys. Right. So they know that if a beast like the Bismarck makes it out into the Atlantic, they're done. And desperation is a powerful motivator. And Britain just doesn't feel like surrendering. Sorry, Charlie. That's not going to happen today. They know that if they let the Bismarck through, the convoys will collapse. They let the Bismarck through, that's the end of that. They're done. So this is a really crucial moment, almost kind of the pivot point, to my mind, of the Second World War. Which that's hard to say. I guess it's hard to pinpoint that. So we'll call it a step in the very much right direction. To me, it's a huge pivot point. I don't know that everybody would necessarily agree. Now, I'm also not necessarily qualified to make that assessment, but I'm going to anyway, as our listeners have come to expect. Well, you think I am. I'm going to maybe disagree. I don't know.
I point Matt the most. Everybody knows this podcast is about me.
Absolutely. 110%. Always has been. But here's where it gets fun. And I, again, went down this road because of the upcoming time travel talks centering on espionage. The Germans completely underestimated the British spy network by the time we get into 1941. They fully expect to just slip the Bismarck right on past Britain and into the Atlantic. Germany, in true Nazi fashion, thought their occupation of most of Europe was some sort of, blessing. No doubt.
I am the biggest penis ever. Here I come.
Exactly. So they've got that in their mind. When it comes to dealing with these countries that they've occupied. So you have all these countries, like I said, Denmark, Norway, France, Holland, Belgium, yada, yada. They have all been brutally conquered and occupied by these Nazi dicks, and these countries are full of people only too happy to pass information to the British.
Well, obviously, I mean, that's what I would do. I'm sorry.
That's what I would do.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
If I was there, I would do it too. So, whatever.
Vive la resistance, right? That kind of thing. So Germany never could get her head completely around that. Some more of that unbelievable arrogance we were talking about earlier. So it only takes 48 hours for the news of the Bismarck's launch to reach Britain through these spy networks, just in time for the Bismarck to pop off in Norway to refuel.
Okay.
And that gives the British a heads up and time to go ahead and locate her. Not only are the Germans not worried about spies, They're taking an out in the open freaking pleasure cruise north on their way. So
Bachelor party? Like, what the fuck?
who knows? Who even knows? They're just taking the scenic route to refuel, having a good old time. They show up in Bergen, Norway, and boom, British reconnaissance is able to catch a photo of the Bismarck. So Operation Rhine is now doubly compromised. But again, do you think these Nazi pricks were going to turn back?
Nazis.
No.
Not.
They're just going to keep, I guess, goose paddling. I don't know what goose stepping is on the water. They're going to goose paddle.
Goose paddle.
Of course. Of course. So Admiral Lütjens has no idea his movements are known. And as the weather turns, he says, oh, shit, this is exactly the cover I need to try to sneak across. Like, reel it in, bras. We're heading out in like 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes ago, I needed to be gone. So he leaves Bergen before the Bismarck's fuel tanks are full, saying basically, I'll get gas at the next station.
You got a little bit to take it, right? I mean,
got a little bit. And to be fair, there are many a German tanker floating around in the Atlantic that he could go out and find, but he doesn't count on several things, starting with the fact that the British know he's coming. So Lütjens is confident he's going to refuel later. He's just way too excited about these storm times. Lütjens is like full steam ahead, going to get through the Denmark Strait without anyone seeing him. But like I said, he has no idea that the Brits know that he's coming. He's left early for an ambush. He's essentially left early to show up to an ambush by the HMS Hood and they're securing an interception basically of Bismarck, the British are, on either side of Iceland. So either way that they wanted to go, it was essentially the Bismarck was not going to get free passage through the straits. And this all goes according to plan. Intercept the Bismarck essentially before she can slip into the Atlantic. Now, Lütjens now has like a seriously tight butthole, right? Because he's in a really difficult position. Yeah. He's in a really difficult position because he's under direct orders not to engage with the Royal Navy, right?
Like, don't attack.
Don't. That's not what this plan was. Even if they attack you, you just turn around and head on back. We'll do this another time. Because that's not what the plan was. There were to be no sea battles, just attack the convoys. Because at this time, Hitler's gone ahead and opened up that second front, or starting to open that second front in Russia.
Okay.
So what he needs
is starting to match up. Okay, sorry.
Yes, our timelines are starting to come together. So what he needs is the Western Front to shut down post haste, because now he's got to go get himself caught in Russia in the middle of winter, essentially. Yes, which we know how that goes.
We've talked about winter Russia. So.
Yeah. Winter is coming. Exactly. The Night's King's out there doing his dance, like telling Hitler, come on.
So I understand I get what's happening. There really is a tight window for everything to happen that either happens in favor of or against, or both. It literally is. All right. Let's
correct. And a lot of the high command and Hitler himself didn't necessarily have a huge grasp on naval battles, like, say, Britain would for the last 1,000 years or so at this point in history, right? Like, they don't have quite a grasp on what they're dealing with. So it's very, very important that these convoys be attacked, starve Britain out early, done and done, right? Close the Western Front. Now they're free to go and have fun in Russia.
Right.
So he's kind of in between a rock and a hard place here. The admiral, however, Lutyens, is undermined by the ship Bismarck's captain, and he returns fire. Now, the captain's thinking tactically, he's got to take care of the ship, blah, 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 whereas Lutyens is thinking more about overall strategy. So Lutyens is all about following orders in that classic Nazi fashion. The captain of the Bismarck overrides his orders and defends the ship. Now, as we already know, the hood is sunk in this engagement. Now, Lutyens realizes what no one else on board the Bismarck seems to be able to grasp. Sure, they saved the mission for now. The Bismarck's defended, but Lutyens realizes, oh shit, we just sunk the pride of the Royal Navy, and they're going to be pissed.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because at least one person, higher up, realizes the mistake they just made, because they were already given orders not to attack the ship, even though they were coming for them. Back up and saying, okay, fine, we won't do it, because I bet you anything Hitler was trying to work on some sort of negotiation, something to work out. We're like, hey, just let us by and we're good. He could have done, I don't know. I'm probably reaching, but that's what my mind is thinking is, wow, this person, the captain, really basically gave its own demise by attacking the Royal Navy.
Essentially signed his own death warrant, pretty much. But to be fair, I can understand where he's coming from too. Instead of just turning tail and scuttling, he's not got the full picture. He doesn't have all the information like Lutyens has. So it's kind of a rock in the hard place there if you are the Bismarck. But Lutyens knows what's coming at this point. And despite not recognizing all the previous screw-ups of this plan, he knows now he's in some serious trouble. And this is kind of a third blow for Operation Rhine. Sinking the hood galvanized the British. Sort of, you just sunk our favorite toy, you assholes, we're coming for you. We talked about that earlier, So Lutyens at least seems to realize we engage sea battle style, and now they're just going to keep on coming until this thing is finished. They're not going to stop. Not now. Exactly. And as we know, he's very right, because boy, does this light a fire under Britain's ass. Not only that, but this engagement leaves the Bismarck with some damage. We talked a little bit about that earlier, so let's kind of spell that out. Now, she's taken a shelling, and the bow of the ship has been damaged, and they're leaking oil all over the place. Now, the leaking oil slows the Bismarck considerably, as well as the damage to the bow of the ship. And her one great advantage was her speed. She was difficult to catch. Now, leaving the refueling early has double backfired on Lutyens as well. And so he's stuck leaking oil faster than he could shake a stick at. He's going pretty slow when that was one of his really big advantages. So he's kind of got to roll the dice going forward, right? So instead of going back to Norway, Lutyens refuses to scrap the mission. As Lutyens sees it, if the Bismarck can make it to occupied France, they can repair her there. And once repaired, the Bismarck can slip into the Atlantic to attack convoys as she pleases without having to try and slip through the strait again. So basically, if they can make it to occupied France, they have the run of all of the Atlantic and these convoy ships. They can do what they originally set out to do, if he can make it. So really quickly, and it doesn't feel like it, as the British, from the other side of the tale, as the British have lost it, they've attacked their own ships. The Bismarck knows that she's in a great deal of trouble, or at least Lutyens seems to grasp that fact, if you will. He's gone. He's trying to get down where he can repair things. Now, this bit of hubris and gambling will be essentially the most critical decision to factor into the fate of the Bismarck. Now, Lutyens, knowing the British knew they were coming, knowing that he'd already galvanized them to kick some ass, knowing the situation the ship is in, decides to make for France anyway, when going back to Norway was clearly the safer situation.
But wait, is
But
Norway a safe zone? Is Norway a
Well, it's
friendly?
occupied territory.
Okay.
It's
Shit,
under
yeah, let's go
Nazi
around there.
occupation, but they're going to go right back through the straits and go back to where. But that's, again, that would have been, and turns out it would have been a safer situation. And the France thing was a gamble.
They probably
You know,
destroyed the war. Everything could have changed if they had just turned around and gone back. It could be different.
but he was all about that mission. And I ask you to remember, though, too, it's incredibly important at this point that they can wrap up the Western Front as quickly and easily as possible. So Operation Rhine, this is where Operation Rhine becomes a matter of huge importance, right? So he's all about the mission. Lutyens is, and I think that kind of speaks volumes for Nazi indoctrination. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said,
brainwashing, but whatever you said.
Indoctrination. As Lutyens sets sail for France, and he would have made it too, had he not made yet another critical error. Lutyens had successfully given the British the slip, but again, in classic Nazi fashion, he just has to break radio silence and make a call back to Berlin. Like, thank God Nazis on the whole are a lot like teenage girls that have to call each other and gab about, like, every time they get their period, and be dramatic AF about it.
Oh my God, did you hear what Susie did in math class today?
Oh my God, did you hear that Britain broke up with us? Yeah, pretty much it all the time. Now, it's this huge, dramatic, rambling signal about how dire the Bismarck situation is.
Oh.
Which is just even more fun and a little bit of irony, right? Exactly. So over and over, this kind of shit happens, and it's really going to end up being the Bismarck's ultimate downfall. Whatever the logic, it gives the British the perfect opportunity to pinpoint the Bismarck's location once again. The best part is Lutyens is pretty much free and clear if he would have just kept going. Does that make sense? He just had to keep going. He's free and clear past the British. If he hadn't sent that message, the British would have been hard pressed to find the Bismarck. Period. Yes. He would have made it. But it's at this point also that the British make their catastrophic error and go the wrong goddamn way and are now forced to rely on that ragtag bunch of aging biplanes to bring down the most advanced piece of equipment on the sea.
Right.
Now, here's where we get to why those aircraft are important. Even though these planes were like, you know, the Impala of aircraft, they're not the Ferrari. Let me put it that way. It ends up being yet one more falling domino in the story of the Bismarck. Ridiculous as it may seem for these old, rickety, open cockpit, small engine, dinky aircraft to be the real trump card for the British, it's exactly what happened. Yeah. The vast disparity in wartime technology ended up being a winner chicken dinner as the Bismarck's kick-ass anti-aircraft guns were too advanced to deal with the biplanes. I'll explain.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the anti-aircraft guns could not be put on a slow enough setting to effectively target these swordfish biplanes.
So the biplanes were so slow they couldn't be read on a radar?
Well,
Or
they
like
could. They could. But the way that the guns are set up, you've got different settings, and their targeting systems are for a plane that they expect to be going 150 plus miles an hour, which would have been, you know, the planes of the day that you would have thought you would attack the Bismarck with.
Right.
And the
these are
swordfish top out at 80.
So they weren't even They weren't even going fast enough to be registered.
They're firing. The anti-aircraft guns are firing way ahead of the targets, so they couldn't hit the planes.
The swordfish is like, oh hey, sweep, move, dip. I can see you coming, bitch. I'm
Pretty
coming.
much.
Pew, pew. Sorry, that's incredible.
Pretty much. That's
Like,
it. Is. It really is.
Technology that is too advanced to win your war. That is really something you don't hear of. Just gonna say
That you don't hear often.
No.
But here we are.
And
Right?
World
It's a
War
nice
II.
change of place. Nice change of pace for all of our listeners. Normally it's the other way around, but we wanted to switch it up this week. Too advanced. So no planes are shot down. They're shelling way ahead of where the plane's even at.
Okay.
These biplanes that the Germans are initially like rolling their eyes at, you know, are able to drop off all of their torpedoes, and even the mighty Bismarck, remember, has an Achilles heel.
Everything has an Achilles heel.
Everything and everyone. All it takes is one, and sure enough, it found its target. Now, the rudder and propellers are the weak point of every ship. The Bismarck's only hope at this point was to try and outmaneuver the torpedoes that the biplanes are dropping. And it was during one of these maneuvers. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, how can you outmaneuver something that even your own guns can't track?
Well, as they're dropping, they're going into the water in an attack formation.
Right. So basically, the ship is going to move, but by the time it moves, the planes are going to already see where it's trying to go.
Right, but they have a limited number of torpedoes on each one. Remember, they're coming down, they let that loose. These are old planes, and then they go on. Like, they've only got the, you know.
Okay.
So the ship turns to try to maneuver out of the way of these torpedoes, but the one lucky torpedo hits home right behind, as it turns the way the maneuver was going, right behind the now exposed steering room, which jams the rudders. So they're jammed where it's just going in a circle, in other words. In this case, the Bismarck just had a real bout of bad luck. This wasn't necessarily, you know, a mistake on anybody's fault or in anybody's part. It just, the one hit home this one time.
Right.
There were ample reasons that they needed to have done it with 6 ships. The whole operation was doomed. But, you know, shit happens. Even to the Bismarck, who's now dead in the water, which takes us into the final battle. No more mistakes to be made, essentially. It's just a question of how long was the Bismarck going to last. Ultimately, we know she sinks. So the Bismarck sank, Britain's finest battleship, and outmaneuvered enemy radar, only to be brought down by slow-moving, outdated planes.
Like getting beat up by grandpa.
Exactly.
Great grandpa. It's like your great grandpa shows up to kick your ass. Yes.
And does so quite successfully. So the world's most advanced warship's first and only mission lasted little more than a week thanks to some really, really shitty decision making. So like we said, all of that comes together. We're looking at the wanting to end the war. This is a really big turning point in the war for Britain, but that's also because we've opened up another front, right? So now we've got the two front war going on.
Right. And honestly, the only reason why Britain got involved in the war in the first place was because of the fact that, honestly, the Germans kind of did it first. Like they were told not to fire, even though they were being closed in on, and it just kind of sparked, that domino effect. And here we are.
Right. And this sea battle. Now, you mean this particular battle. There was a whole litany of reasons for the war.
Yes.
But you mean this battle. I get what you're saying.
This particular battle, yes.
This particular battle
did cause, probably, I'm going to assume, quite a few things to change in what the years are to come. So
it is a really big pivot point because remember, the rest of our battleships are kind of scuttled. Now we've opened the second front with the Soviets.
Right.
And now Britain's also standing free. So Hitler now has himself a two-front war because the Bismarck did not succeed. Supplies are coming and going. Then it all just rolls downhill from there.
Yeah, and not only is Britain surviving, but they're now pissed. So now you got a problem. Now you got Britain, where you were trying to take over and have claimed and occupied territory. Now you've got them going, oh, you done fucked up. Like,
exactly.
You done gone fucked up. Like, so it's very interesting.
No, that's exactly true. And it's really interesting. What do we learn? I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. One, nobody and nothing is invincible, which I think is the most important lesson that anybody can take away from history. But, hubris is a killer. Don't be an asshole. Anyone, anything, anytime. Whether it's a hostile nation or Mother Nature herself, everything is impermanent. And that's a lot of what we also forget about in history. It's the one lesson that everything comes back to. Nothing is permanent. Nothing lasts forever.
I feel like the word one is a reoccurring factor in this episode, where it's just one shot, one mistake, one success, one fuck up, whatever it might be. It just takes that one seed to be planted, and things will either domino for you or they will domino against you. And that's history, man. It really is.
That's history. That's history. That's life. That's everything. You're going to understand yourself. You understand history. And that's kind of what we always come back to here. So we know it's a long one today, guys. I'm sorry. I intended for it to be short, but that never, ever happens.
I always just strap my bootstraps on and just expect
just boot and rally, because it's never going to be short. So go check us out on Patreon if you actually want to watch this ridiculous stuff be recorded. It's patreon.com/body count. We post it free there. You can hear us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Just search Body Count, or you can listen at our website at historypod.com. We've got some updates coming to the website. A bunch of stuff is going to start looking new. Merchandise is going to be, it's all going to be in one spot, guys. We know we're kind of all over the internet and we want to centralize everything. Do us a favor. Tell just one person you know about us if you love this show. Just one person. You can, like we said, grab our merchandise at bigheadsmedia.com. All of that's about to change, though, but you can still do it as of right now today. Click the history tab, and we are right there. First thing you see, you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Body Count Pod. We post a bunch of on this day in history body counts daily, like drop a anywhere from 3 to 8, fun, crazy body counts on both platforms daily. It's a lot of fun. That's all Bethany. She does a great job. I always enjoy them.
I tell you what, I have actually learned even more. I mean, this podcast, I've learned quite a bit, but even doing just the marketing for On This Day, every day I wake up and I'm like, another battle, another race, another king that steps up, another plane crash. It does feel sometimes a little redundant, but you see the pattern and it gets a little frightening. And it makes me not want to fly ever again.
Doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes.
It makes me not want to go to places that have, a lot of earthquakes. I'm like, damn. I don't want to do that. Nope.
This is what's important about history. Same old shit, different day. Yeah. So follow us on there. We drop news and additional tidbits. Anything that we've got going on, you can find there. Bethany, where do people find you at on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Bethany Skelton 5, the number 5, and then on Instagram, Bethany RN24. I do have a Facebook, Bethany Rose Skelton. It's kind of, if I don't know you, if it's not your podcast, I'm not going to accept your request. I'm just going to be honest. But yeah, usually you can find my life at least at those 2 social media.
Yeah, her Facebook is her private times, and I don't have one. You can follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Jessica B. Manor. So that's going to do it for us. Next week, we'll be back with Dr. Mark Vincent on the subject of his excellent book.
Which I'm reading, by the way. All you listeners out there know that I'm a dance major. Definitely no history or interest in history. But after having the interview with Dr. Mark Vincent and the way that Jessica described the book, I just couldn't help myself at least attempting. Now, I will admit, right firsthand, I do not know or understand everything that's being said in this book, okay? But I have a general idea, and I have questions for Dr. Mark Vincent that I think that are really important for the normal person that will kind of help understand the criminology and the background of different subcultures throughout Russia and why they did what they did, and to have an understanding of
who am I talking to, and what have you done with Bethany Skelton?
It's your fault.
Oh my God, how terrible. You've learned something.
I have. And not only I learned something, but I found something kind of intriguing, because we're not just talking about any old czar, or, well, not any. We all know there's not just any old czar. There's many czars. No. But this is a different kind of Russian culture. And because I've had kind of a introduction, a slap in the face on what Russian culture is, to see the backside, the behind the scenes of the nitty gritty of Russian culture. It's very interesting because it is actually very much like American nitty gritty backwards culture, a little more heavy metal, but it still kind of has the same concept. So it's very interesting to read and to kind of get a grasp of, well, at least I know America didn't start this bullshit. So it came long before us. We're good. We're not
This
psycho.
has been going on in all of human history forever. That is the literal point that I try to get across.
Yeah.
It's not the first, nor will it be the last, folks.
So read the book. Honestly, even if you don't have an interest in Russia or in history or in general, yes, it's going to be confusing, but I think that's why I'm glad I'm reading it, because when we have him back on, I do have questions that seem probably peripheral, like bullshit. Oh God, Bethany, how dare you ask such a smart man this question? But it's going to, I think, help maybe back up what I think I already know. I think if that makes sense, like I'm reading along and I'm like, wait, I think I'm very sure I know what this means. but I need somebody smarter than me to make sure to tell me that, yeah, I get the gist.
No, it totally makes
But
sense.
I get the gist. Okay, I get the gist of what's happening.
It's
here.
all that matters.
Yes.
That's
And
all
that's
that matters because you start getting into it. But no, it is a great book. We'll talk about it all next week. But I think that is going to do it for us this week, at least.
Check us
Yeah.
out.
This is everything. So
If you have
check us
problems.
out. Follow us. DM me, email me, Jessica Manor at bodycountpod.com. Or don't. Blair. But all right, guys, we will see you back here next week. Bye.